This is The Civil Fleet, the podcast focused on the activist-led refugee rescue and support missions across Fortress Europe, with me, Ben Coles. In today's episode, we speak with Barbara from No Name Kitchen about the organisation's work supporting people on the move along the Balkan route into Europe. Barbara tells us how the EU has externalised its borders in Bosnia and Serbia, how the authorities there have effectively made it illegal for people to help people on the move, and how this has forced people to live underground. Before we get into today's episode, I'd like to remind you to check out the Civil Fleet's website, which is civilfleet.com. You'll find lots of stories there, interviews, exclusive stories, and that kind of stuff. So check out civilfleet.com. Also, if you like what we're doing at the Civil Fleet podcast and you would like to help us out, help us to cover the costs, you can do so by going to co-fi.com/civilfleet. The Civil Fleet is entirely self-funded by me. There's no adverts in it or anything. I've not sold out yet. My costs are quite low, but any help that you can donate will be greatly appreciated. That's ko-fi.com/civilfleet, and you can donate some money just like these lovely people. Someone called Jim, Ada McEwen, someone called Somebody, and Amy, I think that's how it's pronounced, have all donated, as well as Vicky Baker, who set up a regular thing, which is really nice, but that's my mum. So thanks for that, Mum. I don't think you've ever listened to this podcast, but let me know if you ever hear this bit. Anyway, another way you can help share the podcast, you can share it around, give us a rating on different podcast feeds and stuff, tell your friends about it. That's all good stuff. Share us around on Twitter and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. It really helps. So thanks very much if you're doing that. Also, if you want to get in touch with us, you want to tell me anything, if you think that you should be on the podcast, or if you think there's an organisation or someone that we should get in touch with to try and get on the podcast, then email me at info@civilfleet.com. That's the best way to get in touch with me. I'm not the greatest at being on top of my emails, but I'll try from here on out. Also, before we get into the episode, some of the audio quality is not that great. It's my fault. I tried to fix it to the best of my ability. I think it sounded pretty good. It took a bit of work, this one. But hey, I am running this on a shoestring budget, as you might be able to tell. And if you can help me out with that, actually, in that last bit I was talking about. Right. I've got another episode in the works. So we should have another episode 42 out pretty soon. But in the meantime, this is episode 41 with Barbara from No Name Kitchen. Here we go. Barbara, thank you very much for coming on the Civil Fleet podcast. Barbara, you are from an organisation called No Name Kitchen. And we're going to talk today about No Name Kitchen and the work you do on the Balkan route or in Eastern Europe. But before we talk about that, could you tell us a bit about yourself and tell us how you ended up working for No Name Kitchen?
So, my name is Barbara, and I'm the first reference of No Name Kitchen. I am a journalist myself. I discovered about No Name Kitchen in 2017, reading the interview of one woman talking about her experience with other independent volunteers in the barracks in Belgrade. In a winter in Belgrade, that was terrible cold winter. And that was the year where a lot of people got trapped in the Balkan route because the borders of the European Union got closed after the deal that European Union made with Turkey back in 2016. Yeah, so in this winter, the route is closed and it was very difficult to cross. So then, more than 1,000 people were living in that abandoned train station in the center of Belgrade. Many of them were unaccompanied minors. So I got to know about them, and then in May I went there and I met people from the team, and I started volunteering with another organization for just logistic reasons, nothing else, but being very much in touch with No Name Kitchen and very much involved with the situation with the refugees. At the moment I was working somewhere, so I had to go to another country because of my work, but then when I saw that the Balkan route was going through Bosnia is one of my favorite countries. I was living there some years ago. I decided to quit my job and to go to start the No Name Kitchen project in Bosnia. No Name Kitchen, by the way, is a movement, of a lot of people who has the same idea that the borders should be open, that the borders should give to people freedom of movement, and of course should follow the law of the European Union. Yeah. So we started the project in Bosnia back in 2018, where I was living for quite a while. Then I also was in Serbia again in 2019. In 2020, I went from Turkey to Croatia all the way to do journalistic research about the borders. The last time I was there, it was at the end of 2022, beginning of 2023, that I went in Serbia, in the north of Serbia, because last year a lot of people started going from Serbia to Hungary. So there's a lot of people trapped in the north of Serbia, like Subotica, Orgoš, Sombor. And then I also went to Croatia and to Trieste, which is one place in Italy very near the border with Slovenia.
So you've been everywhere, Barbara, with No Name Kitchen. It sounds like you've been to many places and witnessed a lot of things there. You told us a bit just then about No Name Kitchen, but can you give us kind of an overview of what it is? What kind of work does No Name Kitchen do? Who does it help? And I think you have a lot of volunteers, right? Is it volunteer based or activist based? How does it work? Could you kind of give us an overview of No Name Kitchen?
Okay, sure. So No Name Kitchen was, it was 2017. Some people from different countries, many of them from Spain, went to Greece because if we can remember in 2015, 2016, maybe we remember a lot of people from places like Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, were crossing on the way to Western Europe from Turkey through the Balkans. But then in 2017, borders were closed. And a lot of people were trapped in Greece while asking for asylum, while waiting for their asylum to get an answer. So many volunteers at the moment, like many people, would go to Greece to help. And at some point, some people got information that there were more than 1,000 people living in the old train station in the center of Belgrade, and it was like minus 15, minus 20 degrees because it was February, and it was probably the coldest February of the last years. So this group of people took some pots, took some tools for cooking, and they moved to Belgrade. And what they saw, it was awful. They saw more than 1,000 people, mainly from Afghanistan, many of them minors without their parents, living in those old train station with no help from any big organization, any like institutional organization. So they started cooking right away. They asked for money in the social media. Some families, some relatives, some friends start donating, and they start cooking. After some days, they say, like, this seems like an organization, but we have no name. And then one guy from Afghanistan put on the wall kitchen, and then other would say, but actually has no name, so that's why No Name Kitchen, yeah? In the beginning, it was about giving food, but then being there and listening to people, because something that is very important for the No Name Kitchen movement is that people, we are all the same. So the relationships that we can get with people on the move are close, are friends, yeah? So listening to the people, spending time together, having dinner together, sitting down around the fire. Many people will explain to us how they've been pushed back before being in Serbia, how they got pushed back from Bulgaria to Turkey. Bulgaria is European Union country, yeah? How they got pushed back from Bulgaria to Turkey, all the violence they received by Bulgarian officers, which is totally illegal. Pushbacks are illegal, violence is more illegal. It's all illegal, yeah? And then also how whenever they will try to get into Croatia, they will also get pushed back to Serbia, which is also illegal. Why people will cross the borders like this, without documents? Because the European Union doesn't really give many visas if you want to come from countries like Afghanistan or Syria. Doesn't really provide many visas when you're outside. But in the moment you get into the European Union country, you've got the rights to ask for asylum, to ask for international protection, and Europe must give you, this. But it start to analyze if it's possible to give you this protection, which is a legal and long procedure. So when we start hearing about all these pushbacks, then we say, okay, this is not only about cooking, this is not only about charity, this is not only about humanitarian aid, but people are suffering violence paid by the European Union, that means by the taxes of the most of us, because many of us were from European Union countries, yeah? So then we started publishing all these testimonies at the same time. Then we realized that it's not only about the food, it's not only about denouncing, that for us is the most important, denouncing, because as we say, nobody will need charity if there is justice. But it was also about, then you realize how the police officers from the neighboring countries would cut the access to water, so then people need showers to keep healthy, because there is a lot of skin diseases. Then people need actually only that you can sit all together and have a normal conversation, because in the border areas, the situation is very inhuman and people are treated like they are criminals, or, there is a lot of racism, which comes from the government and from the European Union speech, yeah? So then we started developing many different things: food, hygiene, healthcare with the time, public denounce, share with media, our international media, everything what is happening, being kind of like a speaker for the people, in their situation. And like this, we start seeing needed in other borders. We are also in the south of Spain, in Ceuta, because finally, even if it's another route, then you realize how the violence in the European Union borders is quite systematic and quite similar. So we are also in Ceuta, and now soon non-kitchen movement will start working in Italy, Ventimiglia, border with France.
Yeah, so No Name Kitchen is kind of in many places, right? You just named a few, and I'll have links to everything so people can see these places if they don't know. So yeah, there's a lot of places that No Name Kitchen is about. And you mentioned Ceuta there. Is that pronounced right? Ceuta? Ceuta, yeah. That's the border. Yeah, that's the border between Spain and Morocco. It's a little bit of Spain and Morocco, right? And we had an episode with Irina from No Name Kitchen, in episode 6. So anyone listening can check out episode 6 if you want to know more about the situation there. And so, can you tell us a bit about the Balkan route? Like, where do the people mainly come from that are going across the eastern route into Europe? I'll just explain. Like the eastern route, I think, is like countries from like people coming into Greece, then into Macedonia, maybe Serbia, Bosnia, Croatia, and Hungary, and maybe Romania as well. But can you tell us, like, what's it like on these routes, who these people are, and things like that?
Yeah. So basically, routes keep changing. So there is something we need to understand, that routes keep changing all the time. We work with people on the move, and people are literally on the move, finding different ways to get to one place where they can ask for international protection. Yeah. So, and as non-kitchen, we need to adapt to that. When we started in Serbia back in 2017, it was very common that people would come from Turkey either to Greece, either to Bulgaria. In Bulgaria, as many people will explain to us, whenever they reach Serbia afterwards, they will explain how much they will receive violence by the police officers, how they were scared to get pushed back to Turkey. That was something very common. So even if Bulgaria is European Union country, people will try to leave Bulgaria, go to Serbia, and then from Serbia try to reach another country where to ask for international protection. Because normally you should apply for asylum according to European Union thing. You should apply for asylum in the first country you go to. In Greece, people actually would apply for asylum back in 2017. But then what we found out 1 year later, in 2018, is that many people that were waiting in Greece for more than 1 year in camps, where the life in camps is not very nice, as we can all know, because we can all see this information in newspapers and in social media. So many people, even families with children that were not going to school, the children got rejected their asylum in Greece. People, families from Syria, families from Afghanistan, with very strong cases of things that they left behind due to the war. So then they needed to find some different place to go on. So then it's when a lot of people started going from Greece to Bosnia. Many people stopped actually going to Bulgaria, or at least the people that we will meet in Serbia or in Bosnia will never choose Bulgaria because it was very violent, and they heard from many sources that it was violent. And then the idea is to get from Bosnia, for example, or from Serbia to the next European Union country. That can be Romania, can be Hungary, can be Croatia. Yeah, but these 3 countries as well are very famous and very popular for doing pushbacks with violence to people on the move. So then people need to keep going, to move forward, to find another place where they really will find the safety they are looking for. That's why the most of the times people end up in different Western European countries. Yeah. So at the same time, there is the Dublin procedure. Part of the European Union, there is the Dublin procedure. So that means that you can be in, I don't know, France. You go to France somehow after years, because on this that I'm explaining to you, it can take people years, and this can take also years to families, to children, and so on. And imagine you reach France, and you are in France, and you have your fingerprints taken in Hungary, because it can happen that they take your fingerprints, the police officers in Hungary, but then they put you to Serbia, which is a non-European Union country. Yeah. So you're in France, you're waiting for your asylum to be analyzed if you really are in danger back in your country or not. And it can happen that after 2 years they say, okay, you actually have fingerprints in Hungary, you need to go back there, and they deport you to Hungary, and then in Hungary they take you back to Serbia. So if this happens, this is a reality in the European Union nowadays. Another thing, so now also because Greek law changed a lot, and the government changed in the last 4 years. Now many people don't want to go anymore to Greece, because in Greece we know there is information. The journalists are publishing about it. There is a lot of information how people cross by boat from Turkey to some Greek islands, and then they get pushed back in the middle of the sea, which is very dangerous, and this is life risk. So that's why people will now choose again Bulgaria, as they explained to us, because at least in Bulgaria they don't go to the sea on a very in a boat in very bad conditions. No, so now we are witnessing that it's very common that people go from Turkey to Bulgaria, and then from Bulgaria to Serbia. Then they try to move home. This is what we know from what we speak to people on the move. And Greece is less popular because of the risk in the sea.
Yeah, and like you said, the situation in Greece is really terrible, and we've had a lot of people on the podcast talk about the situation in Greece, and it's terrible.
Yeah, now many camps are detention centers, are not camps anymore. So that means that while you are waiting, you imagine you get to Greece and you have the right to apply for your international protection, to apply for asylum, and for waiting for any response that can be 1 year waiting. In many cities, you will get into a detention center. You never know when you will leave this detention center. So you can imagine how traumatic is, because many of the people who apply for asylum in Greece are also families with children. So you can imagine how traumatic it is to be detained, like in a jail, but only because you're asking for international protection.
You mentioned that you lived in Bosnia, right? And I think you might have experience in Serbia. Can you tell us about what you saw there, what kind of conditions people were in, where were people living, and how the authorities treated them?
So we have to think before starting this point, we have to think that one of the main tactics from the European Union is to externalize our borders. Yeah, and when we talk about externalizing our borders, that means giving resources to third countries to keep the people there in whatever condition. We have to say that in whatever condition. If this means torture, it can be torture, because we know that this happens also. The European Union have given money to Libya, and we know from different media how the conditions for people on the move from different African countries is in Libya, and then the police there will retain them that they don't come to Italy, for example, by boat. So when we talk about the Balkan route, then we know that, and you can see this information is online. You can go just to some search and find how much money does European Union, does Brussels give to Serbia and to Bosnia for the people on the move. That doesn't mean to give the money for humanitarian aid, but that means to give the money for, as it is called many times from the European Union, to protect the borders. What this means? So imagine you are a person on the move, you are someone from, let's say, Syria, and you are in Serbia. You try to go to Hungary to apply for asylum in some European Union country, but you get pushed back to Serbia. And in Serbia, there are some camps. The life conditions in the official camps paid with the money from the European Union, are normally awful. So we meet a lot of people that live in camps. And for example, some days ago, we published how people have bed bugs on their bodies because of the mattress on their camp. So the mattresses are not clean, and nobody's willing to clean those mattresses because it's a problem we've been witnessing for years. So many people, instead of wanting to live in camps, like you have to wait in line for a plate of food, that you need to share a bathroom very dirty, according to the pictures we received, with hundreds of people you don't know. Many people decide to live outside of camps, like in abandoned houses, in abandoned factories, in a tent in some forest. And we work with these people, with the people that are not getting any help from the government. Yeah. So then they are there, and in the everyday life, because there is this speech that comes from the European Union, actually comes from Brussels, and is used by the local authorities, both in Bosnia and in Serbia, is like, those are criminals, those are illegal migrants, like someone can be illegal as a person. And then people start to see them like, okay, maybe it's fine to that people is not well treated, because according to what the media and the politicians are telling to us, that these people are actually bad. So then people live in very bad conditions. Many times the waters, the source of water are cut with intention. So for example, I have friends in Bosnia, local Bosnian friends, that had a tap of water for whoever wanted to take water from their house. And the police came and literally cut it and told, if you give water again to someone, to some illegal migrant, I will put you a big fine. Then local people, when they tried, in 2018, in Bosnia, it was very nice, because local people were really nice to people on the move, because Bosnian people will say, we were also here, we were also refugees, we were also fleeing from conflicts and war. So people in Bosnia were super nice. They will go to, some Bosnian people will host families from Afghanistan or from Syria at their places. They will give food, share meals, share clothes, and whatever, until the speech came from Brussels that these people should go into camps. So it came money for camps. It was no money for camps in the beginning. It came money for big camps. Then people on the move should go to camps. Local people cannot be helping anymore. And then the police, the local police in Bosnia, for example, started following whoever was helping. That means also non-kitchen team, no? So then if they will know that some local person is helping a person on the move, like giving room to sleep to this person, this local person will get a big fine. Not easy to afford for everyone, because also in these places in the north of Bosnia, there is a lot of unemployment. So like this, the things started to be much more complicated than it used to be in the beginning. Now people literally live kind of hidden. It's like, I always say about the refugees that are ghosts, because you go to Serbia, for example, and you don't see anymore really a lot of people on the move on the streets. People on the move are hidden in forests, are hidden in abandoned factories, because when they walk on the streets, they risk that the police will take them and beat them, according to what they explained to us. So actually people is hidden. There is thousands of people on the move in Serbia, but you don't really see them on the streets.
Yeah, that's crazy what you said about people trying to help and they're getting fined from the police. That's something that's happening in Greece as well. I've had people tell me that if they're afraid to help people on the move, and if they do, they get accused of being traffickers. Is that the same situation?
They cannot. If you take one person in a car, imagine that you are with someone you've met from, I don't know, Iraq, and this person is injured and needs to go to hospital, and you have a car and you want to bring this person to hospital. Police have told us that we can be accused of smuggling, of human trafficking, which is like, we are not even going to cross any border. The hospital is just here in the same town, but they say no. You can get accused of human trafficking. Once, I remember, many times people will ask you, like, please, can you bring me here because I have problem in my feet and my child, whatever. I remember one day we were providing showers in Bosnia. Many things, but shower was like the place where to meet everybody together, because at that moment, still the authorities allow us to do so. Very visible. So we were providing showers on the place, and then people would come to us to ask for whatever they would need. Then they came these two Kurdish little boys and asked me, like, Barbara, please, could you take me and my brother, like, that means 8 and 6 years old children, can you take us to the camp? Because the camping was like 1 hour far, it was raining. And they said, like, my parents can walk, but for us, we are very tired. They are children and it was raining. Can you take us to the camp? And I say, actually, I cannot. How is to tell to a child that he's not worth it enough in this world that you can take him to the somewhere by car. The thing is, it's not for me. Like for me, I could take, but then this could make risk to the whole project in the organization because the police was very much all the time on top of everything we did. So police would come every morning to the house of the volunteers, for example, to see our documents. And like, it's the same documents as yesterday. They didn't change, but to put pressure on you. So if we will take these children to the camp, we will likely have the police really on top of us to try to make, okay, they are moving people around, they are human traffickers, so let's stop the project. They need to find always an excuse to finish the humanitarian activity in general that is out of camps. So that's a terrible situation. The criminalization of the humanitarian aid that also happens against the local people is awful.
Yeah, that is really terrible. Like, I can't imagine having to, like you said, like talk to those children and say you can't help them and they're really tired. Just like on a human level, that's so brutal.
That's horrible because these children are not going to school. These children, for example, these two, which games they will play? They will show you how it is to go to the forest in the night with a torch in the head. They will show you this as a game to go because to go to some European Union country where to ask for asylum. This was something that they would play on a daily basis because it's the life they know. Because they were like 3 years on the road waiting for asylum in Greece. They got denied in Greece. Despite their story back home, it was pretty crazy. They are from Kurdistan, Iraq, and so on. So, then there is no facilities for children to really go to school and have a normal life because then you can go, there is the official camps from paid with the European Union money. But going to a camp doesn't give you any rights. It will give you a plate of food. It will give you one old mattress where to sleep, but it doesn't give you rights. Also, why people don't apply for asylum in Serbia or in Bosnia? Because if you look to the numbers that UNHCR shows, then most of the people do not get any answer to their asylum or get it denied. So very few people every year get positive when they apply for asylum in Bosnia or in Serbia. So it's also not really an option. Or same with Albania or Montenegro. It's not an option really. And while you are waiting, you need to live in one of these camps where the living conditions are terrible, very dirty, and so on, as we explained. So that's why we need to move on. Because I've met many people in Bosnia that really love Bosnia. Bosnia is a beautiful, amazing country. But they apply for asylum and nothing happens, so they needed to continue the way.
Yeah, and I imagine if the authorities, if the police are abusing you and constantly, pushing you back, you don't want to stay there, right?
Yeah, also because imagine the owners of coffee shops that will allow people on the move to enter to their places will get fines from the police.
That's terrible. That's like really
Yeah.
dystopian, almost fascistic, isn't it? That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then what we are witnessing now is that this externalization of the European Union borders want to keep people far from our borders at any cost. And this means that this year, the big trend of since last year until now is police from Serbia, for example, will go to the places where people on the move live, to these hidden spots, to these hidden forests, and take people. Imagine they arrive normally like at 6 in the morning where people are sleeping, are not alert. Take people and bring them to the south of the country, to the south of Serbia, to keep them far from the border. And then people can, in many cases, are not allowed into buses, so then they need to either spend a lot of money in taxis, either walk the whole country pretty hidden, not to have problems with authorities. And this is all paid with the European Union money. And Ylva Johansson, that is the commissioner of the European Union, the commissioner of Interior, she visited Serbia some months ago. The days before she visited Serbia, everything got, let's say, cleaned. So police went everywhere, even to the most hidden spots, to take people on the move and bring them to the south. So then when Ylva Johansson arrived, she saw it with no people on the move around the border area. And then she congratulated the job that Serbia is doing. So we should always remember this is not something due to Serbia or due to Bosnia. This is something of the systematic violence of the European Union border regime.
Yeah, and it's also, like you mentioned earlier, the border externalization is happening in Libya. I think it's happening in Niger. It's happening in Turkey, right? Europe's borders keep getting pushed further and further away to keep people
Sure.
away, right? There's a couple of things I want to ask about more about the Eastern route. Like, what what age are most of these people? I guess it changes, but it sounds like there's a lot of young people doing this route. Is that right?
There is a lot of young people. You can also find older people. They normally are in camps because finally life out of camps is even more difficult. So normally elder people are in camps, but normally it's very young people, which of course it makes a lot of sense because it's very difficult. Like imagine in some parts you need to jump fences. In some parts you need to cross rivers. In some parts you need to, finally you end up walking thousands of kilometers. You end up living in forests or in some camp with bad conditions. So not everybody can really do that. Imagine, I'm 38 years old. I've been traveling backpacking in many countries, but I don't think I can do what people on the move are doing, So normally, even if the European Union tries to tell us that there is a lot of people on the move and we cannot welcome all of them on the Balkans, actually it's very small amount of people. And normally, most of the people like from these countries, like Syria or Iraq or Afghanistan or Pakistan, they end up being refugees in the neighboring countries. They don't make all the way to Europe. It's very few people that make all the way to Europe. So normally, it's rather younger people. I have seen families with the grandmother, grandfather, and so on, but it was so hard for them.
And also, you mentioned people staying, they stay away from the roads and they'll stay in abandoned factories and abandoned places. Like, have you been to these places? Can you describe what it's like, the conditions that these people are living in?
Yeah, sure. This is where Noni Kitchen goes to provide the aid to the people that are out of the camp. So that means we spend all the time in these abandoned factories. You actually only need to check our social media and you will find so many images. Normally are imagine one abandoned factory with dirty because probably a very old factory from the time of Tito before the war when it was Yugoslavia, no?
Mm-hmm.
So from the 80s or 70s with no windows or the windows are broken or in the floor there is garbage because there is no place where you can really put the garbage and that the authorities will come and clean this garbage. So the garbage keeps accumulating on these areas. For example, when I was in Bosnia, there was one place where there was no camp in the beginning, so people on the move were allowed to live in one place that the man allow them to live there. So I want to speak to the authorities, can you please go sometimes to take the garbage that keeps being accumulated because the guys have no place where to really put it. In the beginning they did, but then not anymore. So there was no really place where to put this garbage. So then there was rats, you can imagine, no? Then it gets very dirty because a lot of people passing by or staying there for a while because it's very difficult to move on. So it's very dirty places. We try to clean from time to time. We also bring bags and bring things to the big containers, but it's not so easy because it accumulates a lot. Very cold places in winter is really awful. So we also provide firewood because then otherwise sometimes people will take firewood from, old factories and this wood can have something toxic for their lungs. So we also provide clean firewood so people don't need to damage their health so much, but are very cold places, very isolated, and the people is always with the fear that police will show up at any moment with violence and take them to the south of the country. In Serbia, to the south of the country. In Bosnia, they would take them to Lipa camp, which is a camp paid with the European Union money, very much isolated from any city in the forest.
The other camps deliberately far away from cities.
Yeah. In some places, the ones that were built before, in 2015, where people were crossing, those camps, some of the camps were one step. So one night stand, no? How do you say, one night step or something like this. So people will sleep there one night to continue because the borders were open in 2015. And then some of them kept being like this, but in general, the new camps are all very isolated. And in Bosnia, they built this camp in a village called Lipa. And Lipa is 25 kilometers from Bihać, which is the main town around. So that means that if you're in this camp and you want to go and buy one chocolate, for example, or to buy shoes or to buy a jacket, you need to walk 25 kilometers because they don't allow you to go into a bus.
Yeah, it's just awful. And you mentioned that No Name Kitchen. You also have a place in Italy on the French border. Did you say?
It's the next step. We are still working on starting.
Okay. Can you tell us like why you're going to move there, or what's happening there, or why is there a need for No Name Kitchen to go there?
We many times, because we are in the border areas, that means in the neighboring countries, many times we speak about how the rights of people are not respected in our neighboring countries, which also not respected in European Union countries, because with the pushbacks and so on, this means to attack the human rights of people, yeah. But then also inside of European Union, within the European Union borders, this is happening. So one example is Italy and France. It's a very characteristic example. People that are in Italy and try to move on to France to go somewhere else, they get stopped, and then they are in Italy with very bad conditions, also criminalized, also treated, as we were talking before, on the living conditions in Bosnia or in Serbia. So that is why we decided that it's also good to be inside of the European Union countries to see how the borders inside of the of EU are working. And there is a lot of attacks also to the human rights. There is a lot of people disappearing or dying that is not really denounced. So that's why.
Yeah, and it's like, it's just, yeah, the situation just leaves me speechless. It's just always so shocking to me what is happening to people.
It is for me, and I've seen, as I always say, this is something that I've been there. I have friends from Afghanistan or Syria that have been through that. They came to me to tell me their story from the night before, and still I cannot believe this is really happening in Europe in 2023. We are allowing this to happen.
I know it feels like something that should never happen, right? But it's continuing all the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think I want to move on to towards the end of the interview now. I think I have like 2 questions left. But before we move on, Barbara, was there anything else you wanted to talk about? Was there anything else I should ask? I'm sure there's a lot of stuff, but was there anything else?
I want to say something small.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling all the time these very awful stories, but I have also to say that people helping people can really do amazing things. So even if it sounds hopeless, it's actually nice, because then you see all these people coming to No Name Kitchen or to other independent organizations with all the love to help other people, and how nice relationships are created. This first. Second, how things really can change and can really make a change when we move all together in the same direction in a positive way. And actually how different actions made by No Name Kitchen together with other independent organizations made things happen. For example, the delegate and subdelegate of the Spanish government in Ceuta got investigated for illegal pushbacks of children, or the state of Croatia got guilty by the Strasbourg parliament of the death of one little girl that we actually found out about that. So it sounds a bit hopeless, but I can tell that with the time, we really believe that things change, and that makes a big change. Also for the everyday of people on the move, how they really feel that someone is taking care of them and somebody loves them, yeah?
Yeah, like it's what you said, is that's really, it's important, isn't it, that it's not a hopeless situation. There is things we can do. And it's great that organizations like No Name Kitchen and the work that you've done and exposed, it makes the situation better, right? Well, it doesn't make it better, but it offers hope, I think. One question I like to ask people at the end of the podcast is how they feel about the future, and you've kind of answered that question. But can you tell us, how do you see what's going to happen here, and how are you feeling about the future of all of this?
Well, rather than the feelings, we can talk about the facts that we can analyze. It's sometimes very difficult because European Union is pretty secret of the next step. So it's not like suddenly some new rule comes that changes all the panorama, and then you didn't see it coming, no? But in general, if you analyze the next step, And if you analyze the speech from Ursula von der Leyen, which is the president of the European Commission, and so on, you can see how important it is to further externalize the borders and to put more pressure on the neighboring countries. That means the border countries of European Union to hold the people and not to put all the responsibility in Western European Union countries. So she recently, Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, recently she talked about solidarity, but for her solidarity means that countries such as Bulgaria or Greece or Hungary also take refugees, not only Germany or Spain. And also there was this, for example, European Union promised to send 500 million euros to Lipa camp, this camp that is isolated in Bosnia, to create a detention center inside of Lipa camp. There are two things that we're really not sure what will happen in this detention center. One could be that they just detain people so people cannot really go to the border because they are in a detention center. Or it could happen, and we are not sure about this. Also, Bosnian people are like, what can happen here? Then maybe someone comes to, I don't know, Germany, ask for asylum, and then until during the asylum gets analyzed, these people is sent to Lipa camp. But we don't know. This is something that we are still trying to find out. But for sure, European Union promised at the end of 2022 to send 500 million euros to Lipa to make a detention center. This is information. And in Serbia, the same. Money was promised for keeping people far from the borders.
Yeah, so it's good to know what's happening, right? So then you can, like you said, like having this fact, now analyzing the facts, you can see what's going to happen and try to plan your activities better, right?
Yeah, also in Albania and in North Macedonia, both countries have received a lot of money from European Union. In Albania, it was the first country to get Frontex, that is not a European Union country. Finally, what happens that, there more money at the border between Albania and Greece to keep people not coming to the rest of Europe. But what we witness when we are in Bosnia or in Serbia and we meet people that have been through this route, they explain to us that actually they made it, they could cross, but they made it in a very dangerous way. So some years ago, Albania was open, Albanian-Greek border was open. So people will explain us that was hard border because a lot of mountains, but okay, no life. They will not feel that they are risking their lives. Now, when we meet someone that went through this border, explain to us how they really felt in danger, how they spent a lot of money in some mafias or whatever, and how it was very difficult to cross. But at the end, people seems that they end up crossing, only risking their lives more.
Yeah, that's right. The more danger, the more border security, that just makes it dangerous, right? And more people still going to try. It just means more deaths.
And more power to mafias as well. Because if you can cross for free, why you are going to pay a mafia, right?
And so my final question, Barbara, is anyone listening to this podcast, how can they support No Name Kitchen? How can they find out more?
So we are very active on our social media. Everything we keep knowing, every story people want to share, we keep posting. So welcome to follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, and now also we have TikTok to get to the new generation, which is still more difficult for us because finally we tell very hard stories all the time. Also, it's very important. I really believe in the good of the people, so it's very important that we all share this information. So we all make sure that people that are around us are nice people with good heart, know that this is happening, because the main issue is that this is not in the agenda of the media. So many people don't know this is happening. So try all together to spread the voice and to tell to everybody this is happening. Also from Learning Kitchen, we help if you want to organize, for example, one event in your community, we can support with materials and with information to organize this event so more people is aware. And of course, donations are always very needed because we mainly try to buy the things locally, because it's better for the environment to buy it there than to bring things from other countries with trucks. And also it's nicer to give like new shoes instead of very old shoes to people on the move. So we try to buy the things locally when possible. So yeah, just follow us and keep informed and make sure that everybody around you knows what is going on. Because finally this is paid with the European, with the taxes of us as European Union citizens. And finally, this happening in Europe in 2023, which is very, very sad that this is happening. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
People are suffering a lot.
Well, yeah, I'll also have links to everything you've mentioned on the show notes. So check out the show notes if you're listening. And yeah, Barbara, that was really great. Thank you so much for your time.
Also, please let me remind that we also have new clothes. Like this started some months ago. We have beautiful clothes, and also it's a way to spread the voice with the clothes. And all the money that goes to the clothes goes directly to our activities on the feed.
Oh yeah, I will. I'll link the merchandise as well. Like I've seen the shirts that are pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. So thank you very much, Barbara, and I'll be in touch.
Sure. Thank you very much, Ben, for giving voice to the situation.
Great. That was episode 41 of the Civil Fleet podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks again to Barbara and to No Name Kitchen for coming on the podcast and telling us all about this terrible situation in the Balkan routes. Do check the show notes if you like. You can find out much more information there about No Name Kitchen, how to follow them, how to donate to them, and how to volunteer for them. That's all in the show notes. Check it out. Also, what else do I have to talk about at the end of the podcast? Oh, yes. You can help us out by donating a little bit if you like. Go to ko-fi.com/civilfleets and you can donate a little bit of cash, an absolute wad of cash if you like. But you don't need to, obviously. But that would be great if you do. And yeah, share us around. Check out the website, civilfleet.com, and all that stuff. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, we've got another episode in the works, so that should be coming in the next few weeks. So be on the lookout for episode 42. And until then, I hope you've enjoyed this one, and I'll see you soon. Bye.